Welcome to the Delight Your Marriage podcast, the show where you hear from amazing and inspiring wives sharing their struggles, triumphs, and advice for this journey called marriage. Here's your host, Belah Rose.
Hey there, this is Belah Rose. Thank you so much for joining me at the Delight Your Marriage podcast. And today we have a great talk for you. This is Miss Gaye Christmus, and she is going to be talking about her experience of 30 plus years and what she learned that took a process to understand the differences between male and female sexual response. And I'm so grateful that she shares openly about how it took her quite a while to figure out that they are just different and what it is that she needs to feel fulfilled and ready to have wonderful intimacy with her husband. So I think it's going to be a great episode for any of you who are looking to not only understand the woman's response, but also to understand your own, whether you're a husband or wife listening. So let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, well, welcome back, Delight Your Marriage listener. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm excited to have Gaye Christmus from calmhealthysexy.com with me. Hi, Gaye. How are you doing?
Hi, Belah. Good. How are you?
Doing well. I'm excited to have a great conversation today. And I'd love for you to go ahead and introduce yourself, your family, and a little bit about your day-to-day life, if you would.
Okay. Well, I've been married to my husband, Dan, for almost 30 years. I can hardly even say that, but in November, we will have been married for 30 years. And we have two young adult sons. One has graduated from college and is working and kind of out on his own. And the other one is a college student, and he lives at home. He goes to the university in our city, so he lives at home, but he's in and out a lot. So we're kind of semi-empty nesters. We don't quite have an empty nest yet, but we're kind of moving in that direction. My husband and I both work full-time outside the home. We both actually work for the same university. And I have a background in a health field, and I work as a technical writer and editor in a health field. So we're busy, but we don't have the busyness that a lot of women have of having small children at home, but we're still busy. You know, we work full time, and I'm trying to keep my blog going and kind of build it up. So that's it. We do live in a city, but we live kind of out in the country. So we have a big yard, a big garden. So we're outside a lot on the weekends, trying to keep that up. Yeah, we have some chickens, so we're that's kind of what we're doing on a day-to-day basis.
That's awesome. Well, my husband and I live in New York City, and we spent.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, and we spent 2 days ago was our rest day where we just spend the day kind of relaxing together. That's our family's tradition that we try to do every week. Right. But we were just daydreaming about how nice it would be to have a yard and chickens. And so.
It really is nice, I have to say. It's really nice. It would probably be hard for us to live in the city, you know, after having kind of a lot of space around us. Yes. One day I might be your next door neighbor. Okay,
again.
that'd be awesome.
We'll escape the city life and get down to some rural. That'd be awesome. But would you share a little bit about you and your husband's personalities? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we are both introverts. We kind of go against the idea that opposites attract, because we have very similar personalities. We're both fairly quiet, as I said, introverted. We like peace and quiet. Raised two boys, that was kind of hard to come by. But we like, some personal space. We like some personal time. We're very low drama. We do not have any patience for drama. So we really have very similar personalities, which I think is good in terms of getting along. And the place where that it may not be good is in terms of kind of generating some excitement in your marriage. Sometimes, opposite personalities, that creates some excitement. And so we have to be, I guess, maybe more intentional about creating some excitement because we are both so low key, and it would be easy for us to just kind of float and, let things go. So, we also have to be intentional about, connecting with other people, because it would be ezy for us to just stay home, work in the garden, work on the blog, mow the grass, and not, we're not like big partiers or big hosts. So we have to really be intentional about connecting with people and having people over and that kind of thing, because it doesn't come naturally to either one of us.
I love that, the talking about kind of knowing yourself and knowing that, okay, this is something that's helpful for our marriage. We just have to be intentional about having that.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it starts by knowing who you are and knowing who your husband is and knowing each of your strengths, which seems really good.
And I think it takes time to sort of figure that out. I'm pretty sure I didn't realize that at all when we were first married. I think that sort of, you have those realizations over time if you're paying attention and kind of wanting to understand.
Yeah. No, that sounds really good. Well, this is all about inspiring and empowering wives to live wholeheartedly in their marriage. And so I would love to hear maybe a scripture or a quote that's meant a lot to you over the years or even recently.
Okay. I was thinking about two. Philippians 4:6 is always meaningful to me, about not being anxious about anything, but bringing everything to God in prayer, because I do tend a little bit toward being an anxious person or kind of a worrier. I sort of come from a family of worriers, so I came by it honestly. So that has always been a very good verse for me, because I've never really overcome my tendency to worry. I've never been able to just completely give it over to God and let it go. So I'm always having to come back to that. And, kind of, remembering that he says not to be anxious and to give everything over to him, and, that there's really nothing to worry about, that he has it all under control. But I have to learn that lesson over and over again, because I just can't seem to remember it. And then something that has meant a lot to me kind of over the past couple of years is just verses that talk about walking with Christ, or God walking with us or leading us. I just have had kind of a visual in my mind recently, which is kind of interesting because I'm really not a visual person at all, but just of like walking with Jesus and sort of him leading on a path. When I was thinking about this morning, I was thinking about how he says he's the shepherd, and we hear his voice and he leads us. And I just have been thinking about that a lot recently, and that I really just want to, walk with him, even, take his hand and sort of follow. And I also picture, when you're on the path with him, I kind of imagine that there are paths going in all different directions, and it's very easy for me to get off the path, that he's leading me on and kind of go in a different direction. And so I just keep thinking about, walking with him, him taking me by the hand, just verses that say, he will lead us if we are willing to follow. Because I'm very inclined to go in my own direction, very much so. So I need to keep sort of bringing myself back to that and to his, willingness to lead me, and knowing so much more what's better for my life than what I know or understand about it.
Yeah, I just love that, because I think a lot of times we get caught up in the busyness or the worries or the opportunities even all over the place, and then so often I do myself also, just forget that, okay, I'm being led, I'm following, I'm not, this isn't my show kind of a deal. This is, and I don't mean the DYM podcast. I mean in life, this is not my life. We're crucified with Christ. We live with him. So that's great. Yeah, I love that too. Well, I wanted to ask you about the difficult season or struggle in your marriage that we can listen to and learn from and hear your heart through. So if you could, would you share?
Okay, I would. I will say, which goes back to our personalities, we've had a pretty low drama marriage. I mean, I'm not sure we've had more than, 5 really big blow-up fights in our entire 30 years. But that doesn't mean we haven't gone through any difficulties. The thing that I was thinking about is that we have had some struggles in the area of sex and intimacy, especially earlier in our marriage. And there was a really long time when I felt like my husband was selfish in that area. It was so perplexing to me because he is not a selfish person. I mean, he's not selfish at all. But really... And that was just an area of, it just seemed like we could not get on the same page. And I couldn't figure it out for a long time. And you feel like, okay, we're in the sexual revolution, like probably 4.0 version now. It's the 21st century. Our culture is just bombarded with sex. It's everywhere. And you think, well, I should know everything there is to know, but you don't. You don't. I mean, you know what the culture says about sex, but it's very possible to be married, even to be married for a number of years, and not know kind of what's going on or what would make things better in your marriage related to that. And so, over time, what I realized is that I was lacking some knowledge. He was probably lacking some knowledge, and we were really lacking in good communication on that. For example, I mean, this is almost embarrassing to say, but I was pretty old before it really struck me how different women's sexual response often is from men's sexual response. I mean, I want to say, this is like a sad admission, I was like in my 40s before I realized that. It's kind of one of those things that on a surface level, but I didn't really know it for my own life. And I think that's one of the things that we were constantly, butting up against. So, I mean, I would, work all day, or when the kids were younger, be home with the kids all day, and, everything's go, go, go. You're busy, it's hard, especially when your kids are young, and it gets to be 10 o'clock at night, and you fall into bed, and then I would think, why am I not interested in having sex? There must be something wrong with me. My husband, he's worked hard all day too, but he could fall into bed at 10 o'clock and be interested in sex. And so I just kept thinking, what is wrong with me? Or alternately, what is wrong with him that he can't see how I'm struggling? So that was really a barrier and a point of friction for a number of years. And what I finally realized was I am completely normal for a woman, and he is completely normal for a man. And I don't mean to stereotype, because I know some men and women are different, but I think in general, most women, cannot work all day, collapse into bed, and be interested in sex.
Right.
Probably a lot of men can.
Right. Yep.
So, I really had to figure that out, and I had to start saying to him, okay, here's why I think this isn't working for me. I think I've got to have some time. I have to have a break from sort of the day-to-day grind, the daily grind. I need for us to have some interaction during the day that will sort of get this going. One of the things that we discovered is, texting is great for that. I mean, I thought sexting was just for kids, but, sexting is great for couples too, as long as you're not using a business phone or something, I guess. But so we just had to, I just really had to learn about that. I had to sort of read and get my mind around that and say, there is nothing wrong with me. And there's nothing wrong with my husband. He's not selfish. He just doesn't understand. And so we just had to, really talk that through and have some arguments about it and have some times of me being pretty mad at him. And sort of change the things that they were doing so that they were conducive to both of us, being interested in sex and intimacy. Because, I wanted that for my marriage. I wanted it for myself. I'm not one of those people who believe that sex is only for the husband. I absolutely don't believe that. I think that women, are sexual beings too, but sometimes it's more work, I think, to figure out how to make it work for the wife. And so that's something that was difficult for us. We've really worked through a lot of it. It's much better for us now. I'm not saying we don't ever fall back into a bad pattern, but I think I learned to communicate better, to say, okay, here's what I'm feeling, or here's what I'm thinking, or here's what I think would work for me, and he had to learn to be able to hear that and to be able to say what he was thinking or feeling too.
And I love that you mentioned, that question, what's wrong with me? Yeah. I feel like that's such a huge thing that women are constantly feeling in sexual intimacy. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because the whole cultural image of sexuality is pretty much based on male sexuality.
Yeah.
Even in, say, books that are intended for women, romance novels, the sex and intimacy in those books, I think, are very much a male model. It's like a couple falls into bed for the first time ever and has these fantastic mutual orgasms. Well, how often does that happen?
Right.
I don't really think that happens very often. And in movies and in just, I just think the sort of the cultural saturation is kind of male-oriented sexuality. And so you feel like if you don't follow that model, then there must be something wrong with you. Right. If you're not just ready to fall into bed at any moment and have the world's greatest orgasm, there must be something wrong with you. And I just discovered that's not true at all. Yeah.
And so when this was especially poignant when you had young kids, is that the kind of the difficult period?
Yes. This was kind of a struggle for a long period, I'll say.
Yeah.
But it probably became most noticeable when our kids were young, and I have boys, and I know you have boys too. And boys are exhausting. They're great, but they're exhausting when they're little. And when my children were young, I worked either freelance or just part-time, and was home with them a lot, or most of the time. And that's that's a hard job.
Yes.
And so, yes, I think it became most noticeable when our children were young. And, we probably, it took us quite a few years, I'll be honest, to really figure it out and work through it.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that honesty, because sometimes we think of the stages or processes that we go through as if it should be as fast as in a movie, something that takes years and years in a movie is done in 2 hours. So we think that one conversation is going to fix it all. It was a process for you. So what were some things that you had to kind of put in place to make sure that you were able to enjoy sex in the afternoon or in the evening?
Well, as you said, you can't just have one conversation, and I don't like to have difficult conversations. I would like to have that conversation one time and be done with it.
Right.
But I found, that you just can't do that. You have to keep having the conversation, even if it's difficult, so you can work through it, because as you say, it's not a movie. You're not going to talk about it one time and everything is all, peaches and cream. It just doesn't work that way.
Right.
So, excuse me, we had to put in place things like, my husband just saying, okay, I'm in charge now, you go chill out, you go do whatever you want to do, or, I'm going to take over the kids, I'm going to clean up the kitchen, I'm going to do whatever. So that I could sort of have a break between just the busyness of the day and then spending time together in the evening.
Yeah.
He also became more conscious of, just being in touch with me in the day, kind of, just in a, funny, flirty way, just kind of getting things going in that direction. And, and I had to be willing to say, too, okay, here is what I need. I just need this time. I need to take a break. I need to, I just need to cut things off right now and go sit down and get my mind together or whatever. So, it was both of us. I mean, once he understood, he was willing to do things to make this work. And, I had to be willing to say what I need. Women a lot of times don't like to say what they need. So I had to be willing to say, here's what I need in order, for us to, really make things work out in this area, both say tonight and kind of overall in the big picture.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. I think it helps women to get a chance to see like what another marriage looks like. How can husbands be proactive and help their wives? I just think that, you're sharing about how your husband was proactive is big for husbands to think about, okay, how can they help their wives get more in the zone and even just love on her a little bit,
Right.
Practically speaking, to give her a rest from the kids and let her just kind of be her own person for a while is huge.
Right. It really is. And I think husbands can be proactive, kind of by educating themselves too. Like I used to send my husband, articles or links to blog posts, and then he finally subscribed to the Generous Husband blog. Because he really talks about those kinds of things. So I think it's also an action that husbands can take, is to just get informed, because I think a lot of people are probably like me. You feel like you know everything there is to know about sex, and in fact,
right.
you may not.
Right. Well, and I love the point that you made earlier of the whole culture's view of sex is based on male sexuality,
right? Which
I think is so true. I mean, you look at all the marketing and all the advertisements. You've got scantily clad ladies,
Exactly.
Because obviously that attracts views, it attracts people's attention. So, but it's not indicative of reality, which is your point here, which is really great. Okay, well, I hope that you have been inspired to start really figuring out yourself or figuring out your wife more. And if you're a wife listening, say what you need and be open about what's going on for you. And if you're a husband, ask the right questions, trying to figure out where your wife is coming from. And I hope that this has inspired you to live in wholehearted intimacy in your marriage. God bless you. I love you, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you've been blessed by this, why not share it? Until next time, live with love, wisdom, and passion.